Thank you. Oh, I guess I better have my notes. Yes, I'm using notes today. The other day, a group of I think there's 11 candidates for mayor got together to discuss their thoughts on Calgary's problem with homelessness. And it really got me thinking that it's an important election issue. And it's important for us as Albertans to kind of understand what needs to be done and what the solutions are. Because we like to believe that homelessness, if you're homeless or living in Princess Island Park under a bush, its chances are because you're addicted to something or you're lazy. I mean, why else would we have a premier that would go down to the homeless shelter and kick people and tell them to get a job? These are the people that are homeless in Calgary. But I thought it was important to share some other sides of why people are homeless in Calgary. And unfortunately, I didn't have a heck of a lot of time to get together stories, so I had people send me a couple to illustrate, again, that homelessness really comes down to being a problem with a person. So some people sent me some stories, and one was about a guy named Dan who he moved to Canada in 1983. I'm not sure where he came from, but he became a dishwasher. He didn't have a lot of skills. He barely had English, and he became a dishwasher. He worked for the same restaurant in downtown Calgary for 20 years as a dishwasher. Now, in Calgary, our minimum wage, if you're only going to work for a minimum wage, you have to work about 56 hours just to make the poverty line. So he worked about 56 hours a week, and he was happy with that. He wasn't afraid of hard work. Obviously, he didn't want to work hard enough to get out of being a dishwasher, but he did that for 20 years, and then he started feeling a bit funny. And he got really sick, and Alberta takes care of our citizens with free health care. So he went down and got checked out. Turns out he had diabetes. Apparently he didn't eat well enough. And no benefits as a dishwasher. The employer just couldn't afford to give those. So he wasn't able to afford the medication that he was on. Again, if you're only going to work for minimum wage, you can't really expect to pay for things like medication. He ended up in the hospital, and he lost his foot. He was in the hospital about 3 months. During that time, his employer had no choice but to let him go. And unfortunately, his landlord had no choice but to evict him. And because he was in the hospital, nobody was there to pick up his stuff, so it just went into the garbage. So I'm not sure that's the best example. He worked hard. He got sick. He tried to do his job, and then he ended up in the shelter because he was missing a foot. Well, okay, I guess that's not the best example. Maybe if he'd gone to school and earned something better than minimum wage, he would have been able to pay for that medication and not lost his foot. Maybe that's a lesson there. The other story I was sent was a guy named Bob. He worked for a great big telecommunication company in Canada that will remain nameless, but they live in the north. And he went to school, and he became he got a Bachelor's of Arts, and then he got a Master's in Business Administration, and he ended up the VP of Marketing. He was there about 10 years. And he paid into his benefits, which was, I guess, the company was good enough to give benefits, but he got MS. And I don't know if you know much about MS. He couldn't work. He had to stay home. So with these benefits that he was given, they took care of him. Well, I don't know if you know much about the telecommunication industry, but some of them are having trouble financially, and this particular one went into bankruptcy. But he wasn't too worried because, well, he had these benefits. He had that safety net, taking care of him, so he could stay home and rest. Turns out that the benefits were managed by a company called Sun Life, but they were administered by the company he worked for. Way to save money is the Alberta government allows companies to do this. So now Bob is a creditor. he's owed money by the company that's bankrupt. But because we live in an equal and fair society, he is no more important than any other shareholder. In fact, he's actually down the list a little bit. So when the assets of the company are spread out, he gets his after a few other people. Again, that doesn't really illustrate that it's his fault for being homeless, does it? So I guess the points that I'm trying to make is that we see people on the street who are addicted. We see people who are on the street who are lazy. But the reality is people who are homeless for a variety of reasons. And those reasons are extremely complex. So our solutions are not just to throw money at affordable housing like all these candidates say. Some of it has to come down to social policy. Maybe we do need to revisit and look at a living wage in Canada. Maybe we need to make sure that medications are covered on benefits. And maybe we need to make sure that at the very least, if we're going to allow companies to manage their own benefits, that their employees on long-term disability don't take a back seat to shareholders.